Good morning and welcome again to the PM Talk Show. We're out here today on Miller Lake and we have with us our guest, Attorney Brett Duncan, who is the school board member for District E for the Tangipahoa Parish School System. Welcome,
Well, thanks.
Attorney Duncan, and we're glad to have you as our guest.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be with you. Just wish you and all of your visitors or your guests a Merry Christmas. I know we're coming up on that, but I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad that you and I get to continue the dialogue that we've had for many years now.
Right, and we really appreciate that because talking is the beginning of getting everything settled. But today we brought you on to talk about the new modifications as much as you're able to the DSEG plan. We all know about the first plan and nobody really wants that plan because it is not cost effective. So we're putting together something that is more cost effective, that everybody can live with, and that will desegregate the schools. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you and give you an opportunity to talk as long as you need to about
Sure.
what are those things you're proposing to do.
Well, sure. Well, the first thing, the plan that we're currently ordered to implement right now, and of course, I guess we should be completely clear that what we're talking about is the portion of the desegregation order that has to do with student assignments. And so that portion right now has been kind of stalled in implementation for, I guess, almost for 2 years, which means that for 2 years we have not really taken any significant steps towards getting this issue resolved. Which is devastating for all kinds of reasons. But it's stalled right now because before we can do this new student assignment plan, we have to build 3 new schools, which our school board, of course, just simply cannot afford to do. And so it's flawed in that regard. It's flawed in the fact that it requires us to build those 3 new schools. It's also flawed, though, because I know you've seen the actual order,
Right.
and you've seen the portion of that order that actually projects what the student populations will be when that order is fully implemented. And of course, it leaves many of our schools segregated,
Right.
which means that we will continue to be setting up our teachers and our students in those segregated schools for failure, or destining those children for failure. And so that's just a completely unacceptable result to me. As someone who has advocated for children and for teachers for most of my adult life, I would like for us to actually have a plan that will set these children up for success,
Right.
and that will give them a chance at being successful. I also want our teachers to have a shot at being successful. And as long as we're giving our teachers classrooms that are 80% full of at-risk children, the teachers will always remain overwhelmed, and the students will not be served the way that they should be.
And that's a good thing because in the NAACP we have a lot of retired teachers who do substitute work from time to time, and a lot of times I'll get phone calls, Miss Pat, we got to do something. We got to do something to help these kids. We have to. When you have a large number of at-risk kids, whether it's black or white, it's just kids that want to do what they want to do. They're not getting what they need. It makes it real difficult for kids who want to do and parents who want to see their children get a quality education. And I'm finding that this is what's going on now. It has gotten so far, I believe, beyond a black-white issue. It's an issue of people simply wanting their kids to get a good education in order to compete with society, compete with other countries, compete with companies, be able to get jobs, bringing jobs into Tangipahoa Parish, for instance. What do you think about that?
No, absolutely. I will tell you that I do think that it transcends the issue of race. It's really just, at the end of the day, it's a question of what is morally right for the children that we have in our community. Now, at the same time, though, and I'm sure you and I both get criticized often that we have to talk so often about black and white and all of that. But at the end of the day, we have to talk about that because it is a desegregation case,
Right.
and ultimately the question at the end of the day is, do we have the correct quota to satisfy Judge Lamel when it comes to desegregating these schools. So we have to talk about it in those terms, but ultimately the goal would be to set up a situation where, again, we are meeting what I believe is our moral obligation to try and lift up these children, particularly the children that are most at risk. The children that don't have the correct parental influences, or the children that are affected by poverty, the children who are abused and neglected. These are children that I believe that, certainly I'm a conservative Republican. I don't ever hide that. But I'm also, I am a person of faith first and foremost. And so as a person of faith, I believe that my moral responsibility is to wake up each morning and seek out ways that I can bring God glory and honor. And the calling that He has placed on my life for, again, ever since I've been an adult, has been to look after those most vulnerable in our community. And so that has been to advocate for these children. And so right now, I firmly believe that our school system is not addressing the needs of those children, because we continue to consolidate them into these predominantly at-risk schools, which again means that we are setting them up for failure. So as we're talking about the question of how to properly end this desegregation case, which I believe we all want to do, I think the conversation has to focus on addressing what we have been doing wrong for all these years, which is that consolidation of those students.
You came to our first public meeting at Greenfield, and what was your take on the meeting?
Well,
you gave a lot of good information, and a lot of information that was given surprised a lot of people that was there because they did not know. Personally, I feel that it was a good meeting, but I want your take as a school board member. What did you walk away with?
I think it was a good meeting. Look, it's always positive to start dialogue and to meet with constituents. Particularly, it's helpful to me when I do have folks that disagree with me or have different points of view. It's hearing those other points of views that informs me and that helps me to ultimately make the decisions on how to lead this school system. At the end of the day, I'm the one, along with 8 other people, that have to cast these votes. And those are things that stick with you, especially the hard votes. And of course, this is a hard vote, and because there's lots of complicated factors. And so as I'm preparing myself for those difficult votes, it's important for me to gather as much information, do as much research, talk to as many people as possible, hear contrasting points of views. And so I think that was very helpful. I think it was a great meeting. I think what I shared was received well. I do get disappointed from time to time when we're having this discussion and I'm talking about the importance of getting it right when it comes to student assignments. I do think that far too often the conversation goes to jobs or buildings or supposed allegations of lack of funding or just wrong information being out there. I just wish that we, again, at least could keep the first things first. I'm not saying that those other things are not important. Sure, they're all important. But I do think it's important that we keep the first things first, which is, fixing this long-standing bad policy that is not adequately addressing the needs of children.
And we agree with that. The majority of people in Tangipahoa Parish agree with that, because if you don't fix your past history, you're going to repeat it. And we've already repeated it for 50 years. Publicly, I'd like to say thank you for being an advocate for at-risk kids in the court system. I have just slipped in and sat just to see for myself, because I heard so much negative stuff, but what I saw was a positive in how you stuck your neck out in many cases to make sure that the kids would not end up in the court system, but we given an opportunity. So on behalf of the NAACP, we say thank you for doing that. When we look at where we are now as far as people questioning, well, why is there a quota? What I know about the quota is that during the time that the lawsuit was filed in 1965, 40% of African Americans were in Tangipahoa Parish, which meant that any federal dollars that came down had to be representative with 40% of the people in classrooms or whatever. That was not the case, and as of today, it's still really not the case. Are there any school districts that are near that 40% now that you can share with us? In student population?
Sure. Well, I mean, first point on that, the percentage is actually data-based and study-based. You know, I've done a lot of work researching this issue, looking at many different studies. And what the data tells us is that if we ever get too far above the 40% threshold of at-risk students being consolidated in one school, that again, that's kind of that tipping point where our school will kind of start to the process of not being a school of excellence, meaning it's not a school that will be able to adequately service either the at-risk students that are there or the non-at-risk students. So I think it's very important that we get to roughly that 40% threshold. We currently only have one school district that is kind of at that 40 to 50% threshold, which is the independent school district. If you work your way north to south, when we started, well, we'll just go with where we are now. Kentwood's area, if we take that K through 12, and that's the numbers I'll give you, Kentwood is roughly 90% black, 10% white. Sumner is now with M2M and some other things that we've done recently, they're closer to the 28% black, the remaining of that population being white. Amite is closer to 80% black, 20% white. Laranja started out, they were about 7% black, remainder white. They're a little bit closer to about 18% black now. Hammond, of course, has made the most progress of all, but they're still in the 75% if you're going K through 12. And Ponchatoula again has come pretty close, but it's only with M2M transfers. They're around the 32% black range. So that's kind of where we are now with the percentages.
We're going for break and we'll be right back.